Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Lion's Den. I'm your host, Loren Lyons, and today I have someone special joining me. She is a friend, but she also is a journalist from Pensacola, Florida, but she's currently based in New York City. She covers race, education, Christianity, and their intersections. And she's also a very good friend of mine, maybe my cousin. Ladies and gentlemen, Sierra Lyons.
Yes. Hello. Thank you for having me, possible cousin slash friend.
I'm so glad that you're here joining me today. I'm so excited for our discussion because we always have good discussions when we talk,
Yeah.
like on the phone. So I was like, yeah, we got to bring this to the podcast a little bit and have some fun. So, as I mentioned, you are a journalist. You've done some freelancing journalism. Can you just like share a little bit about some of the things you've done and stories you've covered?
Yeah. So I started freelancing while I was in undergrad still in like 2021, I would say is when I started. So I cover race, Christianity, and education primarily. And then obviously politics gets wrapped in there with all of those topics. But I've written for Teen Vogue, Huffington Post, Washington Post, New York Magazine. I'm missing a ton, but yeah, I like to really take what's happening within culture and always look at it through a lens of how that impacts politics, impacts Black communities, Christianity. And so, yeah, my 9 to 5, I cover national education and then I also still freelance. So I definitely busy. And being from Florida, there's always something to talk about with those topics. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't I know it?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So you've been doing this since you were in college, freelancing specifically, and you've gotten like, you covered and you've interviewed some major people. And I think that is amazing, to be so young and to be able to cover such powerful stories. With also some powerful people as well. I know like that transition between like being a college student to an adult um
Oh, yeah.
is very challenging and very different. And especially I would think, for you, because some of this you were doing in college, you were just like the interviews you were getting, I was like, girl. So like, how did you prepare for those moments, like with those type of interviews that you were getting in college? And what did that navigation look like?
Yeah, so a lot of those interviews you're probably referencing is when I was writing for Black Girl Nerds for a while. So they're an online publication. And so think comic books, TV shows, movies, all of those like intersections of like nerd culture with a very Black lens to it, which is really awesome. And to be honest with you, I was putting an immense amount of pressure on myself as a transfer student from
Mm.
into FAMU. I was a community college student prior, and I knew I needed to hit the ground running with securing an internship and getting all this experience that maybe I didn't necessarily get the 2 years prior. And so I remember literally just typing in like Black publications and just scrolling on Google. And I didn't even know what Black Girl Nerds was before that, to be honest with you. But I found the site, I was reading around, and I thought it was really cool. And so I was like, you know what? The worst that can happen is the founder just doesn't answer my email. So I literally just emailed her in the middle of class while my professor was teaching. I just emailed her and I was like, "Hi, I would love if you have any tips on how to get into the industry as far as freelancing, or if you have any assignments. I am totally capable and willing to do any assignments that you might need for reporting." And she just took a chance on me. I remember we talked on the phone for a little bit and she was like, "What's your favorite TV show?" And I said, "This Is Us." And she's like, "Do you want to interview one of the cast members from This Is Us for your first interview?" And I was like, heck yes. So that's kind of how I got started with that. But I always tell people, like, don't be afraid to cold email. Don't be afraid to DM. The worst they can do is not answer or say no. But so many of the gigs that I've gotten in journalism has literally been from a DM on Twitter or from cold emailing an editor. So that would be the start. And it gives you more confidence. Like the more people say yes and take a chance on you, it gives you a lot more confidence to do it even more. I'm not saying to do that for every single job necessarily, but that's how I got started with like interviewing people in college.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing, girl. You was hustling.
I
I
was.
mean, yeah, that's amazing to just really kind of step out on faith, honestly, and just be like, "Hey, I'm out here." Um, but from that transition from college to now being a young professional, what was that like for you? Because I think you also caught in the pandemic. Yeah, so you were in the middle of the pandemic, I believe, when you graduated. So what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I graduated summer 2021, so it wasn't right at the beginning of like lockdown and stuff when a lot of people unfortunately couldn't have like a real graduation, but I was definitely in the thick of it. Like I was trying to secure internships and I was job hunting in the middle or at the very beginning of the pandemic. So it was really hard. I'm going to be honest, like graduating from college and going from sorry, is that going on your end? It's not going on mine. I think it might have stopped now, but it was like graduating from college is difficult anyway, but then you add on top of it a pandemic and it's just like exponentially more difficult. And if I'm really honest, people were looking at me and they were seeing the success that I was having with like interviewing celebrities, freelancing, getting flown out to New York. Like those were great accomplishments, but internally I felt like such a failure at the time because my very harsh definition of success for me was to immediately have a job out of college, like a full-time job in a newsroom. And that didn't happen right out of college. You know, I got my first in-person internship a year after at NPR. And that was a wonderful experience. But even then I was still feeling just so much imposter syndrome and feeling like a failure because the way I pictured it in my head and the way I like pumped it up in my head, I was like, you know, I graduate top of my class. I have all this experience under my belt. I'm going to immediately graduate and land a job in New York, and it's going to be up from there, and it's going to be so simple. And it wasn't. And I'm just being really honest, and I hope that you know maybe people that listen to this that are on the brink of graduating, or maybe they just graduated, a lot of people end up going through that like phase of being depressed or just feeling like they don't know who they are because you went from having an identity that you've had essentially since you were like 5 to no longer having the identity of being a student. And a lot of like your socialization comes from school and learning obviously and just having like structure in your day. Going from that to like not having that at all and trying to job hunt in the middle of a pandemic when you're stuck at home, it's really hard. And I wish I could go back to like 2021 me and give myself a hug and like more grace because I was putting way too much pressure on myself to have it all figured out. Like the reality is that a lot of people end up moving back to their hometown for a period of time. A lot of people have a hard time finding a job in their industry as soon as they graduate. And it's nothing to be like ashamed of or to think that you're a failure just because you're going through that struggle. But I was not having an easy time. I really, really wasn't. And I'm thankful for where I am now. I still ended up getting to where I wanted to go. But 2021 was just a rough year all around for me for numerous reasons. But that whole like that graduation, as soon as you graduate, like that little phase, it's rough. It is. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that it's not. And maybe for some people, it's super easy. And I'd love to talk to those people. But for me, it was not. So that's just my very honest answer.
Yeah, no, that's real. And I can definitely relate to that as well because I graduated 2019 and then we were hit dead in a pandemic. So, job hunting was pretty much like on pause. Like there was nothing really going on. And I worked, I think, for an additional year and a half at a job that I knew it had nothing to do with my degree. It had nothing to do with my passion. And so like I can definitely like agree. It was a very dark time in that like of uncertainty because we didn't know how long this pandemic was going to last or the impact of it when it came to actually like getting the job and being in the space you want to. You couldn't really connect in a way. I mean, there were things out there like what was the oh my goodness, what was the app that everybody was on? The little auto app.
I know what you're talking about.
Ugh, I cannot.
Something Room?
Yeah, the what now?
Was it something Room? I can't remember the name.
Yeah, I can't, and I still have it on my phone, but I just don't
I
because
never
I never.
downloaded it.
Oh, it was Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. I'm like something about a room or something like that. I don't know.
Man, but like that, like it was a that time. Like I'm kind of like with you. It was because you have so many like steps already answered for you. It was a space where it was like, okay, I gotta get creative. Like
Mhm.
I gotta make something out of nothing. So for one, that was where Lions Den was birthed, right? And just I also felt like because I had other friends and classmates who were going through the same thing, can we have a space where we can at least, just keeping the practice of PR and just having conversations and talking about trends just to keep us going. Um, because it was not at all like what we wanted to do. And then, like I mentioned, Clubhouse, like when I tell you, I was in every conversation with every communicator, listening to what they had to say, following them. Like that's what, I was like, listen, we gonna have to still move and not just get stuck in that space. So I definitely agree that like it was definitely difficult. And you did mention imposter syndrome, and that made me think of that. I feel like that's a real thing that new young professionals also go through when they, especially when they enter a new space or enter a new career or a new job. What were some things that you did to help overcome that feeling?
Good question. I I'm not sure that there's any one specific thing that I did. I remember being extremely nervous before my NPR internship. I was interning for their investigations desk, and I'm like, I've never even done investigations. And it's like, duh, it's an internship. You're not supposed to be like an expert already coming in. But I think I was comparing myself to like the other interns in my cohort because like even before I even got to DC, like we were doing introductions and they're like, I speak 15 languages and I am majoring in like all these really prestigious, fields. And I was just feeling so nervous. And I think that for me, I'm a naturally I'm not going to say I'm a naturally pessimistic person, but it's very easy for me to be stuck in my head. So I guess the thing that was best for me and is best for me as I still struggle with imposter syndrome at times is really having people around me that are going to speak the truth because your feelings will lie to you. And imposter syndrome is ultimately a lie. It is. I just went to an education conference and there was this really prolific speaker and she was basically saying, she said it more blunt than what I'm about to say it, but she was basically saying like, how can imposter syndrome be real when the people that are placing this feeling on you are the ones that aren't even qualified themselves? Like they may look on the outside, they may look like they have it all together, but she's like, I've been in the White House, I've been in all these prestigious rooms, and let me tell you, like, we aren't the ones that should be feeling imposter syndrome. But I think that having people in my circle, like having my family, having friends, having people that are going to like edify me and talk me off the ledge when I'm feeling like I'm not qualified or I don't want to do this or I'm not, capable of doing this, and having people remind me like, look at all the stuff you've already done. You know what I mean? Like you overcame that mountain, you can overcome this new one in front of you. So I try and keep those people in my life close and around. I do have a hard time sometimes seeing the light at the end of the tunnel in a situation, but I think that my faith obviously also plays a big part in that, is like being grounded in the word of God and knowing that, again, my feelings can lie to me, but what is the truth? Even though I might feel like I'm unqualified, I might feel like I'm not good enough, I might feel like I'm ugly, I might feel like fill in the blank. That doesn't mean it's true just because I feel that way. And today I might be feeling that way, and then tomorrow I might be feeling great. And so I just try and keep it in perspective that how I'm feeling right now with feeling imposter syndrome, it's probably going to go away tomorrow, next week, an hour from now. Like it's a very fleeting feeling. And so that's what I try and do. Like, keep those people around me that are going to tell me the actual truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I try to sit in those moments where I accomplish something. Like, and I try to like celebrate them. I'm very intentional about like celebrating my wins and being like, you did this, you know? And like taking those moments in, at least for me, has helped feeling like I don't know enough or feeling like uncertain or unsure with that feeling. I also had to learn especially with doing internships, and like I kind of had that same thing where I felt like I had to like, oh, I need to know, like I should know this. And it's like, no, you're there to learn.
Right.
And some of that was because I did have a very bad like internship experience where it was kind of that expectation a little bit. But I had to learn that, listen, that was their problem, not your problem. And
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't feel scared to ask questions. Don't. And then, but then also a thing that helped me was like, if you don't know something or you feel uncertain, then don't stay there. Like, go and try and learn and listen and put yourself in a posture of learning from others so you don't feel that inadequacy. Um, Cause like, yeah, like for me, it'd be like, okay, well, I don't know about this. I don't know about that. But then the moments I would be like, okay, well, let me go ask, let me research, it made me feel a lot more confident in those spaces. um so those are just like some things that worked for me. Of course, like I have friends and family, like there are go-to people I always go to be like, am I crazy?
Yeah.
Because some people are really good at making you feel like you're crazy, but we won't get into that. We
Yeah.
won't get into that. But so, just having, like you said, having those people around that are going to keep you grounded and are going to be honest with you are
Mhm.
so important. Because they will tell you, like, yeah, girl, go ahead and do this, or chew the meat, spit out the bones, pick your fights, like, or
Mhm.
okay, no, that was wrong, no, say this, do that. So I think that's so important. And then of course your faith and having that relationship with God, because he will also tell you as well,
Yep. Oh,
especially in how to handle those situations too. um because I feel like it is a weird stage to go from like a kid to an adult, and like
yes.
navigating like how to, like, no, I should be respected as an adult, but I still can be a respectful person, but that
Mhm.
means you have to also respect me as well. So along with that, like imposter syndrome that we named as sort of a challenge, what are some other challenges that you faced earlier on in your career, and how did you overcome them?
Yes. Let me think more about my challenges. I think for experiencing rejection at an extreme rate was difficult at first, which if you want to be in journalism, let me just tell you now, if you want to be in most industries, you have to learn how to deal with rejection if you are a human being, period. Like, unless you are only going to live in your house, work for yourself, never interact with people, you're going to experience rejection. And you experience rejection when you're putting yourself out there and you're DMing people, you're cold DMing people, or you're pitching people. And so I think experiencing a lot of rejection with like not getting jobs when I first started applying was really hard, because I would apply for jobs that I was actually passionate about. I did not do the thing that some people tell you to do in journalism. They're like, just apply for whatever you see. I was like, no, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of energy. If I'm going to apply to a job, it's going to be one that I actually want, and it's going to be something I actually care about. So then experiencing rejection from those outlets that you were actually very passionate about, it's really hard. It is. And I think that I'm grateful that I had friends that were in the same graduating class, or maybe had just graduated, that they were also experiencing rejection in some capacity as well. And so we could relate and we could kind of lament together. But it doesn't feel good to be rejected. But I think that I'm really grateful for the early on rejection, because now if I pitch an editor and I get rejected, they don't take my pitch, I know that it's not a reflection of my character. It's not a reflection of me. There's so many reasons why you may be rejected. They might already be covering the story. They may not have the budget to take on any more writers. they might not have the capacity. You know, there's so many reasons why you might experience rejection. And very seldomly does it have to do with your character when you're experiencing rejection as far as your career goes. And so that was really hard at first. But again, I'm grateful that I experienced it early on, because now when I experience rejection, I'm like, okay, on to the next. Something better is on its way, and I keep it pushing. But yeah, starting out at first, it was hard because, again, I feel like I was experiencing such a high rate of rejection because I was applying for jobs and I was pitching stories. So it's kind of like, you know, you're getting double the rejection as far as job applications and pitches. But I think that, again, I had to realize that very seldomly very seldomly is it personal. Maybe an editor doesn't like you for some random reason, but 99% of the time, it's not because of who you are as a person.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that for sure because um with like my getting into my industry or field, I'm like, because I wanted to do so well, it was just like I was so scared to not only mess up, but like also didn't know. It's different when you're in a classroom versus when you have to actually do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that transition was very like difficult because it was in a space of like, okay, this is where like there was no um in the first place that I like did something, it was like you're building from the ground up. And so it was kind of like, okay, I'm figuring out, and then we're figuring out this whole program together. Like, so it brought in a lot of anxiety on like, oh my God, are we doing the right thing? In a way, I did like too much. And it was just like totally all over the place. But once I again was like, let me lean on people who've been here, who've done this, and ask them, and then also ask questions like back again. Then it was kind of like I felt settled and like, okay, now I know which direction, what decisions to make, what makes sense. If I don't know, like, so it definitely, once I got over like, oh, I don't want to ask, I should know type of feeling, then things started to like move forward in a positive way, which has helped me grow tremendously in the space of PR that I'm in. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I definitely can relate to that. That's real.
Yeah.
It's real, and it's a real challenge. um so for professionals entering, whether the new field or any field, whether it's journalism or whatever, you did mention earlier, it's some advice, but what are some additional things or that they should do um in when they get into their um workforce and their area of study? What are some things and skills that they should keep in mind?
Yeah, so I'm going to give a conventional piece of advice and then probably the most unconventional advice a student journalist probably will hear. My conventional piece of advice for journalists is literally to read. And I know that sounds silly, but I'm not kidding. Like, you would be surprised how many student journalists don't read. And I'm not talking about the shade room, people. I'm talking about reading real news, real publications where they have to actually follow media ethics and laws. Read the news. Like, I like to help young journalists that want to get into freelancing. I'm always giving out advice on how to get into freelancing. And my biggest thing, a lot of people ask, well, how do I write for this publication? And I'm like, go on their website and read the work that they have on their website. That will give you the perfect sense of what they're looking for. If you don't read, how can you expect to be a good writer? You know what I mean? And if you can write, that's the foundation for more than just journalism. If you can write, you can pretty much do anything. You can work in so many fields. And so read things that you don't agree with. Read from silly little articles, read long form, read short form, just read fiction, nonfiction. There's no limit to it, but I think that it expands your vocabulary. It gives you insight. It gives you a different point of view and a different voice that you may not naturally write in. So read it. it's like literally the best advice that I think I could give a journalist as far as conventional advice. Now, my unconventional advice is probably going to be something that no student journalist probably really hears. I know, at least for the institution that we graduated from, this was never shared with me. And if I could share this with people while they're younger now and help them out, then, like, it's a great thing to know, is that so much of my time at our university, I heard professors, really shove down our throats to network, 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 whether that was laterally with other students or network with people that were more tenured in the industry, which is important. It's super good. I'm not saying don't, but my advice is to do what's right for you. That's my unconventional advice. And let me tell you why. Because I've
Mhm.
had many mentors, many of them who are no longer in my circle, because I'm like, y'all gotta go. Because I've had many mentors instill advice, and not even advice. It's been like very forceful advice on, you need to do this, you need to take this job, you need to apply here, you just need to do this, because that's what they did. And maybe what worked for them 30 years ago when they were first entering the industry worked and was good for them and their life and their bank account, but that's not necessarily right for me. And I spent a lot of time taking in people's advice and really valuing it, because I'm like, okay, well, they're tenured in the industry, they must know what they're talking about. But just because they're tenured in the industry doesn't mean they know everything. And you're not them and they're not you. And so I had to learn that early on. And I'm glad I learned it while I was younger, because I ended up taking a job at a very, very good newsroom. And I didn't want to take it at all. I knew before I even accepted it that I didn't want it. And I was being hot, very encouraged by my mentors to take the job. And I didn't really know how to articulate the fact that even though this is a good newsroom, the pay is pretty good. Like, it just doesn't feel right for me. And so I took it and I worked there for a month, and everything in my body and in my spirit and in my health told me that I didn't want to be there. Like, my first day of work, couldn't speak. I've never lost my voice ever in my life. First day of work, I couldn't speak. Whole month, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I had so much anxiety because it wasn't right for me, but I
Mhm.
was trying to do what everyone else wanted me to do, because they were smarter than me, because they're more tenured than me, because they make more money than me. So they must know what they're talking about. But if I can encourage people wanting to break into this industry, especially Black journalists, I'm going to be real with you. The amount of times I've heard people tell me, oh, just take a job anywhere, even if it's middle America where there's just cows and the KKK, like, they just tell you to take a job anywhere. And the reality is, as a Black female journalist, that is not something that I can or want to just do. I don't want to just take a job anywhere. I've had many mentors say, well, you just need to make money, so just apply to any job. And I think it's important to never come from a place of desperation when you're
Mm.
applying to jobs, because when you're desperate, you will accept anything. And so I think that it's so important to trust yourself, even though you may not be tenured in your industry, even though you may be new, you may still be a student, that doesn't mean you don't know anything. I think it's important to listen to your internal voice and what you want as well. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to get up every day and go work that job. Your mentors aren't going to go work the job for you that they told you to take. You have to get up and go work. You have to deal with people in that newsroom. You have to deal with that city that is far away from your family that you don't want to necessarily live in. So I think my the best advice that I feel like I can give anyone is to listen to yourself and to value your own opinion as well, as it pertains to what kind of newsroom you want to work in, what do you want to cover, what type of city do you want to live in, what amount of money are you okay with making, even if it's not six figures. If you can have peace of mind at the end of the day when you come home from work, that to me is more valuable than working in a legacy media newsroom or making six figures. So that's my advice. Read and listen to yourself, because you know what's best for you at the end of the day.
Mm. Phew. Girl, you said something there. No, that's so good, because yeah, desperation will keep you in situations much longer than you were intended to be. And
Mhm.
so you cannot operate from that space. And like, you know what's best for you. And like, even talking about mentorships, because you had just brought something to my attention, like, That's a real thing because, it's like you have to find the balance of, okay, I respect, learning from you. I respect your experience, but I have to make a decision that works best for me. I'm not you. And so sometimes it's almost like some people feel like you have to go through like um like pledging, or like that, you,
Yeah,
in order for you to get here, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like,
just serve your
well,
time.
right. Like, yeah. And it's like you don't have to, first of all, I don't, that culture, I don't know where that came from. But two, things are different, people are different, and it doesn't have to look one way in order to get and accomplish your goals. And so, I think it is very important to have, like, be very clear on what your purpose is and what you're called to do, so that you don't like deviate and doing what that person's purpose is, and then
Mhm.
now you're in a situation where you're not happy, and it's a bad situation. And that even goes for, when you receive feedback, or you receive any type of, and you are talking to certain people, like, you have to really be, know your worth,
Mhm.
to know, like, okay, okay, where is this from? Is this real? Is this true or not? Because that can also happen when you're in this space. And like we said again, like, people are just having in their mindset, like, you have to go through what I went through in order for you to be successful or be
Yes.
like me. So yeah, that's really real, and that's really good advice. Um, because mentorships, you have to be very careful, and
Very.
even if it's someone you trust, you still have to know for sure what is it that you are called to do,
Yes.
not them, but what you were supposed to do. Um,
Yes. Just
yeah.
because some people suffer, they want you to suffer too, just because they did. And it's like,
Mhm.
hmm, you don't need to be in my life. You don't need to be instilling and imparting advice into my life.
Mm-mm. Yeah. So that's real. That's really real. Um, Advice I would probably give is, I know people like say it a lot, but it's it, it's real. Faking it till you make it, and what I mean by that is not like showing up in space with the energy of uncertainty.
Mhm.
Because at least in my experience, when you show up like that and you want people to respect you as a professional or as an individual, people can feel when you are uncertain or unsure or doubtful. um or like some, because sometimes, like I said earlier, sometimes you want to do so well that you kind of psych yourself out. um Even if you don't know the answer to something, or you're new to a space, show up like you belong in that room,
Yeah.
and talk and engage with people like you know what you're talking about. Like, and if you don't know something, it's fine to be like, I don't know at the moment, but I can find out for you. But I think for me, I would have been a lot further had I shown up in that space, like, and moved in that way, and
Mhm.
wouldn't had to go through different, like, battles, and in my, like, showing up in being respected, if I would have like actually like came in that space and been like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I'm here. Like, I may be new, but you still have to respect me at the end of the day, and clearly I'm qualified to be here and stuff. So that would be my biggest thing for me. Advice that I would give is fake it till you make it, or fake it till you believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, fake it till you believe it. And I would also say, always be a student. The moment that you stop learning is the moment that you stop growing.
Mm.
You always want to be a sponge absorbing information, because that's how you better yourself and you perfect your craft.
Mhm.
And those are the people that you tend to see, like, being successful. They're always learning from others. They're always listening. They're always reading, like you mentioned earlier. So don't stop being a student. It doesn't matter how high you get in your career profession. You always want to still remain a student. You always want to still learn. You're never like, no one should ever be too good to not still be listening and
Mhm.
and absorbing information. So that
That's
would be my advice. Yeah. Well, this was great. Now we're to the segment here on the Lion's Den where we get to, of course, we like to play fun games, have a
yes.
little fun, you know, and, have a little fun shade, just a little fun shade. So this time around, we're going to play a game that by now people should be familiar with, called Pick or Pounce. So I'm going to give you two names. It's essentially this or that, but we're calling it Pick or Pounce. And so I'm going to pretty much give you two names, and you have to choose between which publication that you prefer. It can just be on personal preference, you know.
Okay.
I have three. So I'm going to ask the question, and you can just decide which one you prefer. Are you ready?
I think so. I'm scared. This is a bad week to ask this question, but okay. Oh no. Okay.
I mean, it's the Lions Den. We like to have fun
It's
here.
fine.
All right. So first category:
Okay.
CNN or MSNBC.
I'm gonna say MSNBC.
Ooh. Okay.
Do I have to explain or?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to.
I mean, I don't have anything against CNN
Okay.
specifically, I guess, but I do really like NBC Network. Like when I worked with them, it was fantastic.
Hmm.
Selfishly, I'm picking it because NBC broadcast the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade, and I've always said I wanted to host that, be one of the journalists out there in like the 20-degree weather. So I'm going to go with MSNBC.
Yes. 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 Claim it. Oh my God. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be so amazing. All right. Next one. Essence or Griot?
Okay. Well, I am gonna say Essence. I'm gonna say Essence. I just wrote for them for the first time for their Gen Z vertical of the magazine, but
Mhm.
I'd love to write for like the main vertical. Something about the intersection of like politics and like Black Christian women, like Black Christian women, like the impact that they have had on culture. I'd love to write about that. Obviously, the magazine is about like Black womanhood and fashion and culture, which I don't really cover fashion and stuff like that. So I'm trying to think of like how I could go about it, but I think I'm going to pick Essence.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And of course, we love Essence Fest as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's always a good time. Good time. All right. Last one. Washington Post or NPR?
Oh no. Oh man. Okay, I've written for both. I've only worked for NPR, but I'm gonna go with NPR. I had a lot of fun at NPR. I really did. I was on the investigations desk, but literally getting to go in the middle of the day to Tiny Desk concerts, and I really had a great time at NPR. I really did. I do like the Washington Post. I do. I love their gender section. I like to read their gender section. I've written for their gender section, but NPR is it's like a little party like every day there. So I'm gonna go with them.
Okay. See? Wasn't that
It
fun?
wasn't as scary. Wasn't as bad as I thought. I thought you were gonna like name journalists, like pick one, like
Oh,
Oprah or Gail.
oh, you know what, girl? Dang.
It's fine. It's fine.
Well, okay. Wait, Tamron Hall versus Gail King.
Gail King for sure.
Oh.
Sorry. I mean Tamron Hall. I'm sure she's a nice lady, but Gail King, I feel like there's a her interviews and the work that she's done is a little more prestigious. And maybe prestigious isn't the right word, but I know Tamron talks a lot more about like celebrity culture, which I care less about than the things that Gail has covered. So,
Okay. Who's your
yes.
favorite daytime host? Jennifer Hudson or Sherry Shepherd?
Sherry Shepherd for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, she's hilarious.
Yeah, she is hilarious. And I liked when she was on The View. I don't really watch the Jennifer Hudson show as much. I catch some of the clips on like Twitter and stuff, but I'm gonna go with Sherry.
Okay.
I love
Okay.
that. Yes.
Well, thank you for playing Pick or Pounds.
Thank you.
So, one of the ways I like to conclude the show is I like to do this segment called Touch Grass.
Okay.
So, this segment pretty much is where I give the opportunity for my guests to talk about whatever they want to. I give them 30 seconds to a minute. Yeah, I don't care. Any time between that, you can, if you want to go on a tangent, you can. If you want to call people in, you can. This is your opportunity to say whatever you want to say. So the
Oh
floor
no.
is yours.
Should you go first as an example so I don't say anything bad?
No, this is for you.
Um, ooh, okay. I'm gonna go the nice route. And I'm gonna use my 30 seconds to talk about Stevie Wonder. Who would have thought? But I'm gonna say something a little controversial because I know people are always arguing about music on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever. So and so is the greatest lyricist ever. They're selling out shows, so they're the best. And let me tell you that it's a whole different ball game with like music nowadays. Okay, we have streaming platforms like Spotify, like the real dedicated hardcore fans of like Stevie Wonder selling out Madison Square Garden back in the day, Michael Jackson like couldn't even leave the airport. Like it's a different era of stardom. And I don't like how people constantly, I'm gonna just go there. I'm gonna just go there. People constantly are like, Taylor Swift is bigger than fill in the blank, Michael Jackson, or Taylor Swift is a better lyricist than Stevie Wonder. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, I'm not a fan of her music, so I'm not even going to go into all of that. If you're a fan, no worries. We don't have to be beefing. But I just think that looking at music and how it was listened to and how you acquired music back then, for them to be as popular as they were, the Stevie Wonders of the world, the Michael Jacksons, it was a lot more difficult than it is now when you can just stream music from your phone, when you can go to concerts more accessibly. So that's my tangent, is that stop trying to compare the new girlies to the old school heads who paved the way for them to be here. That's my tangent.
Facts. So Swifties, touch grass.
They're going to all come for me. They're going to pounce.
Well, thank you so much, Sierra, for joining me on this episode.
Yay.
I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation. Thank you, everyone who is listening or watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels and follow us on Instagram and YouTube and on Spotify. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.